Monica Simpson would never have chosen the path that brought her to Metropolitan State University of Denver's commencement stage as the 2019 Provost Award winner. But she is immensely grateful to have traveled that path because it has made her a hope holder, a source of hope for herself, her family, and strangers facing trials and traumas similar to those she has overcome. Monica has brought her hope to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention as a volunteer and was inspired to pursue a college degree in Human Services and Counseling at MSU Denver so she could help others in a professional capacity. She graduates today with a 4.0 GPA. And a relentless passion for holding up hope. Please welcome the Spring 2019 Provost Award winner, Monica Simpson.
Thank you, Dr. Capps, for your very kind words. And to our Provost, Dr. Vicki Golick, thank you for this very high honor. Thank you also to our President, Dr. Janine Davidson, and to the many people who work so hard every day on behalf of Metropolitan State University of Denver so that we all can have a successful and productive educational experience. I also want to make sure to thank the Puksta Scholar Program, and especially John and Michelle, along with Tim, Emily, and my fellow scholars. I've already tried to express to you all quite tearfully what a gift it's been to work alongside you during my entire time here at MSU Denver, and I hope I've made that very clear. And to all of my human services and counseling people, to staff, students, and faculty alike, there are simply no adequate words to thank you all enough. There was no better place for me to land in this entire university than in the hallways and the classrooms of your department, and I have been changed in so many wonderful ways, and I am so very grateful. I have to say that being here today as someone who has earned a college degree is not really something I ever imagined happening. My late husband went back to school as a non-traditionally aged student, or as I liked to call him, the old guy. And he used to say to me, even in the years after, "Oh, I think you should go back to school. I think you would love it so much." And my response to him, without fail, was always the same, and that was, why in the world would I ever go willingly pay money to anyone who would force me to take math? It's just not going to happen. But apparently, at some point, I changed my mind, and I took the math, and I lived to tell the tale of the math. And I like to think that my husband would be proud. I know for a fact that he would be laughing, because now I am the old guy, and he'd get a kick out of that, and that thought makes me very happy. I know that most of you here today are not on the multi-century college plan like I am. But please know that I have been privileged to share my time at MSU Denver with you. There are different circumstances that have brought each of us here, and I've been told that I'm supposed to tell you some of mine, and so I will, because I believe strongly in the power of story. I started at MSU Denver in the fall of 2016. My 3 children were grown and gone. I had been widowed 10.5 years earlier. My daughter had just had her daughter less than 3 months before I started school, and quite frankly, I needed to find a way to keep a roof over my head in the greater Denver metro area, as probably some of you have dealt with too. I've been working as an accounting assistant in a high-rise in downtown Denver, and while I made it through numerous rounds of layoffs, the time came when I did not make it through that next round of layoffs, and I'll let you in on a little secret. In the big picture, that was fine, because there's a reason I am here today earning my degree in Human Services and Counseling and not in accounting. As I have told my friend David numerous times, and all of you around him getting your accounting degrees today, thank you for loving accounting and doing accounting. That means that I don't have to, and so I thank you all. Like a lot of people who have dealt with challenges and trauma, I found myself at a place in life where I wanted to take what I had learned and use it to serve other people. And that's really the biggest part of the reason why I came back to school as a grandmother. And in case I'm somehow giving you the impression that that whole process was quick and easy, just allow me to paint a little bit of a bigger picture for you. This is just a straight list of facts, some of the parts of my story. I was married at age 22. After one miscarriage, I had 3 children, a son and 2 daughters. I was divorced at age 33 after my husband's unfaithfulness. I became a single mom. I was remarried 3 years later. Less than 2 years after that, my husband was diagnosed with a rare liver disease. My son entered a tumultuous adolescence that turned his heart inside out, and his pain turned our home inside out. While we were expecting that my husband would one day need a liver transplant, he was unexpectedly diagnosed with inoperable liver cancer. And he was told to go home and get his affairs in order. And so we waited for him to die. But he didn't. After a number of months, some very surprised doctors said, well, they guessed it wasn't really liver cancer after all then, and that they would proceed with the transplant. Because of the type of disease that he had, my husband would never live long enough to make it to the top of the transplant list for a cadaveric liver, and so we began our own search in earnest for a living donor, because in case you don't know, you can donate part of your liver and it will regenerate. So it turned out that our son-in-law, my stepdaughter's husband, was a perfect match, and transplant surgery was performed. Both the donor and the recipient had complications that were rare, if not unprecedented, and in fact, the hospital issued a temporary moratorium on transplants because of them. After 2 months, 2 liver transplants, 1 burst aorta, a total of 5 surgeries, and many trips between the surgical recovery floor and the ICU, the time came for me to give my permission to the doctors to remove life support. My husband died of sepsis 6.5 years after we were married, and I became a single mom again. I tried to balance an uncooperative ex-husband, my children's grief, and my own grief, alongside a brand new life that none of us had chosen. My older daughter began to engage in serious self-harm. She was failing her classes and experiencing daily rages that ruled our lives. Her self-harm and her constant thoughts of suicide escalated to the point where it was very clear that I could no longer keep her safe, and so I called 911 on my daughter. She was hospitalized 2 times on a mental health hold, and she eventually landed in residential treatment out of state. She came home nearly a year and a half later in time to finish her final 2 years of high school. She had learned some wonderful skills, and she had improved greatly, but life was still hard for all of us. We all still dealt with the lingering effects of challenges and trauma. The relationships between my children suffered. The relationships I had with my children suffered. My children suffered, and so did their mom. I didn't know anyone else who had experienced parenting a child with mental health challenges. I had 3 children, and all of them dealt with such challenges. I felt utterly and completely alone. Eventually, I was forced to sell my home. A few weeks later, shortly after my youngest daughter finished high school, my girls were at a midnight showing of the new Batman movie. It was at a theater down the street from us where we lived at the time in Aurora. My daughters were in Theater 9, next door to the theater where the gunman was. Bullets came through the wall. They called me when they were crouched on the floor, hiding between rows of seats. And none of us had any idea yet of everything that was actually happening. My younger daughter was having a panic attack, but her older sister was calm and collected. She, however, was the one who was pretty sure they were going to die. My daughters were ushered out of the theater by a SWAT team. My younger daughter developed PTSD, and that was in addition to numerous issues my kids had already had or that they continue to struggle with, including eating disorders, substance abuse, thoughts of suicide, anxiety, depression, broken relationships, and more. I wouldn't say that I was suicidal, but I truly would not have minded being run over by a bus. I was unemployed for more than a year, and I had to move in with friends until I could find a job and get back on my feet. And that was the accounting job in downtown Denver, the one that laid me off after less than 2 years. In order to afford to return to school, I had to pack up my life into storage boxes 3 years ago, and I moved into a spare room that some friends had in their home. A few months ago, when they needed their room back for another family member, I had to find someone else's spare room to move into, where I remain to this day. And at this point, I imagine you're probably thinking, what kind of commencement speech is this? Because they're supposed to be happy. And some of this stuff sounds really awful. And the fact of the matter is, it would be awful if we just stopped there, if I only told you the facts. Because all of those things really are part of my story, but they're not all of it. I believe that there's another dimension to story, and it's actually more important than the facts, and that is the narrative. The narrative is how we interpret the story. The narrative is the way we choose to define ourselves in light of our circumstances. We have the privilege of determining how we can respond to that long list of facts, of things that have happened in our lives, some of which can be pretty terrible. To quote Carl Jung, I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become. And this is our narrative. Now, don't get me wrong, anybody who knows me knows that I am not one of those people who believes that just saying I'm happy makes me happy. And I'm also not one of those people who will say, oh, I'm fine, everything's just fine, when it's obviously not fine. I don't think that we just get over the difficult things in our lives, because I don't believe there will ever magically come a day when our challenges and losses suddenly just don't matter anymore. So we have to figure out a way to incorporate those. I don't believe that our purpose in life is to avoid pain, and in fact, quite the opposite. I believe that it's only by fully entering into our challenges that we come out the other side in healthy and growing ways. Grief is a part of life for all of us, and we all grieve a lot more things than just death. I've learned that grief will not be ignored or outrun or hidden from, and I've also learned that if I try to turn off some of those difficult things that I'm feeling, by necessity, I also have to turn off some of those terrific things that I could be experiencing, because it's a package deal. And honestly, I don't want to be shortchanged. If I just stuck to the facts of my story, I would miss the part where I get to say that my husband was a compassionate, loving man. He was full of joy and grace and truth and sacrifice and stubbornness. He had a wickedly wonderful sense of humor. If I just stuck to the facts, I wouldn't say that when he came into our little family, just me and my 3 young children, he helped us remember how to laugh because we had lost that. He was an amazing gift, and he continues to shape all of our lives even now simply because of the man that he was. If I just stuck to the list of facts, I would forget the agony that I felt at seeing my children suffer in such deep ways. And if I forgot that, then I would forget to extend understanding and grace and support to others who are watching their loved ones in pain. If I only ever listed the facts and I didn't choose to shape my narrative, I would forget what a shattered heart and a shattered life feel like when your person dies. And I might judge someone who continues to grieve long after our pain avoidance society tells them that they should be over it by now, and really, they just need to move on. I wouldn't be in awe of the relationships that my adult children have ultimately built with each other. I would look right over all the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears, and even tattoos that have bound them together, if I ignored the importance of the narrative and just looked at that list of awful facts. I would forget that one of the strongest pillars of our family structure is humor, and that it came to us at a great cost, and so we refuse to ever lose it again. I wouldn't be able to tell you that my kids are, number 1, fantastic, number 2, hilarious, number 3, fiercely loyal to one another, and number 4, my favorite people in the world. It would be a terrible oversight if I didn't look beyond just the facts and tell you that through those awful days in the hospital, helping both of our husbands fight for their lives, I was gifted a lifelong friendship with my amazing stepdaughter and her equally amazing husband. They've walked with me through some very, very dark times in the past 12+ years, and I'm forever grateful. If I didn't look beyond the simple facts of what occurred, I wouldn't so deeply appreciate one pivotal conversation that I had with my late husband's niece. We were talking one day shortly after I'd been laid off, and I was just trying to figure out what it was I was supposed to do next in life. And without knowing it, she echoed her uncle's words to me when she said, "Hey, I really think you should think about going back to school. I really think you'd love it." And she was right. She was so right. And we have gone on to build a wonderful friendship of mutual love and support. If I didn't choose to let the challenge of my story change and shape me, I would look at those whose children deal with mental illness and with other forms of behavior that our society calls shameful or unacceptable, and I would probably judge them for their failures as parents instead of just shutting up and taking the time to listen to their heartache and sitting in their grief with them. If I viewed life only as the things that have happened to me, I would neglect to share the very real truth that my friends who have opened their homes to me, their spare rooms, they've been an integral part of my ability to return to school. My housemates, past and present, are part of my heart, and I love them very much. They're truly just a portion of the team of support that I have come to understand is surrounding me and cheering me on. I'm only here as part of a concerted team effort. Some of those people on my team I'm related to, like my mom, and others I've known for maybe 20 years or more. Still others I've known for just a few weeks or a few months, but I haven't done any of this on my own. There's no way I could have. And not only do I love these people deeply, I have learned to let them love me deeply too, and you'll just have to trust me when I say that for someone like me, that's a pretty big deal. And then there is the awful and beautiful truth that I would not be here today if my husband was still alive. I wouldn't have had to learn such painful lessons, and I would not have come to recognize my own strengths. I always knew that he believed in me very deeply, and I also know now that I could never have believed as deeply in myself if he was still here beside me. And that is an amazing gift that he gave to me before I ever even knew that I would need it. There's so much that I would miss if I didn't enter fully into the messy, gory, bloody, and beautiful experiences of life. I would have allowed impersonal facts to dictate who and what I became without a thought to what I needed and I wanted and to what I was created to be. I would forget that at our core, I believe we all really just want to be seen and heard and known and loved. We all want someone to bear witness to our stories. We all want to know that we matter. If I just paid attention to the cold, hard facts and I didn't purposefully shape my narrative, I would forget to be the witness bearer, and I would forget to be the hope holder for those who are unable to hold on to their own hope in any given moment. I think we have to do the hard work of wading through all the awful stuff first so that we can become the better stuff that we all want to be, and that is how we build our narrative. And so I have to be honest and say that shaping our narrative can be time-consuming and really hard work. Trust me when I tell you that there are plenty of days that I would rather live in my darker thoughts. And those darker thoughts go something like, I'm all alone. No one really understands. No one really cares. I'll never be good enough, no matter what I do. This isn't fair. Why is this happening? Why should I even bother to whatever, fill in the blank? Because creating our narrative is not just a matter of thinking happy thoughts. And it is absolutely an ongoing process. I don't think that we fully arrive in this life, and by that I mean that we don't reach a place of perfection where we no longer have any struggles. And I think that's the point, and I also think that's really quite a wonderful thing because it means that there's hope. Shaping our narratives takes work, but it's also a major piece of the puzzle of learning how to live a full and fulfilling life. It's not optional if we want to have authentic relationships, not only with others, but also with ourselves. Now, while my circumstances may be unique, my struggle is by no means exceptional or out of the ordinary. My circumstances are mine, and your circumstances are yours, but the struggle is universal. We all have our challenges, the things that try us on a daily basis, our greatest fears that we have faced or think we might one day have to face. I know some of the stories of some of the students here today, and I know that there are true warriors sitting here disguised by their caps and gowns. Some of you have battled addiction, and you work hard to remain in recovery. Some of you have buried your children, whether they were adults or tiny babies or somewhere in between. Some have served time in prison, and you're working to rebuild your lives. Some of you have children right now with serious challenges, and truth be told, you're not exactly sure how you're going to be able to give them what they need. There are those of you who have lost relationships, marriages, parents, siblings, and maybe you haven't lost them to death, but you have lost them nonetheless. It could be that abuse has been part of your story, and people who didn't know better tried to pull you down with them. Maybe you're a first-generation college student, and you have worked so hard not only to make your family proud, but also just to figure out how to navigate this whole higher education thing. You might have family in other countries that you don't know if you'll ever see again, or opportunities that simply are not afforded to you because laws and immigration status issues keep you or parts of your family living in the shadows most of the time. Perhaps you faced illness, serious injury, or health challenges that would stop a lesser person in their tracks. Maybe someone that you thought was on your side has chosen to no longer support you because of who you love or who you are. It could be that you've chosen to no longer wear anything that identifies your religious beliefs because wearing those things puts you in danger. Perhaps your ability levels or your mental health are different than most of your classmates, and you have struggled mightily for every single passing grade that you have received. And maybe you came here to MSU Denver to earn your degree, not because you had this wonderful passion to follow, but because circumstances forced you to. And so this whole college thing has been a painful experience for you. And I have to tell you that I didn't make these people up. These people are my friends, and these are the facts of their stories. These people are you. And really, I know that that is just scratching the surface of so many stories out there. Yes. And even after all of that, even still, here you are today. The simple fact that you are here is a testament to the truth that you're creating your own narrative of strength and dignity and authenticity, whether you realize that or not. You, my friends, all of you, are some wildly amazing people. So in case no one has told you lately, or maybe ever, I want to be the one who gets to remind you that you matter. Your story matters. All of the facts and the narrative that you continue to create, it all matters. You have worth simply because you have made an appearance on this planet. And you have value that is deep and immeasurable, no matter what awful details your own list of facts might contain. Your story continues until your final breath, and your narrative is a gift to make of what you will. The strength and determination that have brought each of you to this point is a remarkable thing to behold. And please know that I am so deeply honored to be counted among you all today. Thank you.